Everyone, go ahead and try 22 and try to have your answer ready by, yeah. And that's actually not the first time I see those numbers, appears in test packets and stuff. With the time travelers. All right, yeah, go ahead and focus on thinking about the conclusion for congruence. All right, so the answer is letter C. All right, so you guys do remember, even though it has been a while, since you did geometry. So when it comes to proving congruent triangles, there are quite a few options, right? And they involve, the size and corresponding angles. So letter C says we have the angle BAC, right? DFE. So those are the angle between the two sides, right? And you have the corresponding sides are equal. So that corresponding to, I believe it's called SAS, right? You guys remember that? Those things, right? So now, then, of course, if you go through some of the options, you see that some of the angles are not even corresponding angles, right? Or some of the angles are not in between the sides, right? So now, why don't we just write down all those combinations of sides and angles to make sure that there is one combination of sides and angles that's not going to work, right? And let's see. Let's start with, let me zoom out a little bit. Probably the easiest one, SSS. Does it work or not? For congruent triangle. Yes, all three sides are equal, right? Or corresponding sides are equal. Yes. All right. So now let's say I'll add an angle, right? I'll take away a side. So let's say maybe, oops. You know what? Let's do this one. AS. Sounds pretty weird, right? I know what you guys are thinking. We'll get there, right? But not yet, all right? AS, does it work or not? See that? Yes, it works, right? It works. Can't wait to tell you the. Anyway, now what about ASA? So still two angles, right? But a side in between, yes, it works, right? So now, I mean, I'm running out of options, right? So we have two angles and a side, so that I have to have like a one angle, right? Two sides. So it'll be, let's say, SAS, right? Yes, it works, right? Uh, oh, you know what? Uh, what about AAA? Straight A's. Sounds pretty good, right? No. Not for congruence. But if you're trying to prove similar triangles, then AA works, right? And yeah, unfortunately. right? So this one, right, it doesn't work, right? I think that's quite easy to remember, right? It's that it doesn't work, for a congruent, not even for similarity, it doesn't work, right? Now, so let me show you, just by drawing a triangle, so you see that y with an angle and two sides, but the angle is not in between two sides, will not be enough to prove the congruence. So let's take a triangle. Let's say the side AB is 10. All right, so I have the angle A, which is fixed at 30 degrees. So now to make an angle not in between two sides, that means I have to find, let's say, a point C on this ray to make sure that I do know how long the BC is. Right, so I can make it, let me guess, it could be maybe 7 or something. Maybe a 6, just make it more reasonable, right? Oh, why? So now what we can think about is, will we be able to draw another triangle with a same angle 30 degree, right? For BAC, right? And the two fixed the side, right? 10 and 6. But the angle is not in between. But the triangle is going to look different. If we could do that, that means this is ambiguous. It's not good enough for you to fix exactly the shape of the triangle, right? So now, can you imagine where I can put the C? Somewhere else. I will still get 10 and 6 and an angle 30. Yes, Ashley? You're talking about like a right triangle? Now in this case, it won't work out because if I want BC to be 6, it happened to be a 30-degree triangle, right? And I did that on purpose, so then the math will be easier. All right. Now, but that's actually a pretty good reference line. You guys know how much that is? Let's say if I were to draw a segment BD and make it perpendicular to AC, how long do you think that BD has to be? In the right triangle ADB, the opposite of 30 must be, it will be 5, right? Now, do you see that BC is indeed a little bit longer than 5, right? So that means I could find another point, let's call it C prime. And it's highly possible that C prime could be, BC prime is going to be 6 as well, right? See that they're symmetric. So that means the triangle ABC and the ABC prime, they have the same angle A, the same sides, right? But they look different. So this is when you have a ambiguous case. But just to know that you don't have to memorize this, right? But if you do want to know why that ASS doesn't work, right? That's something to convince you, right? But I think that, remember, that's the only combination, right? Well, not to mention the AA, right? But I think that it should be easy enough to tell that AA doesn't work for a lot of reasons, right? Just think about a equilateral triangle. It could be as small as this, could be as big as that, right? They all have the same angles, right? All 60 degrees, right? But this one is bad, right? So it shouldn't be too hard for you to remember. Anyway, now let's move up to 21. All right, so that's also a good question that worth a minute and a half. All right, go ahead. Hey.
Yeah.
So well, right now I'm projecting my laptop.
Oh,
So what happens is the projector is flicking, and I thought that was the projector's issue, but it turns out for my laptop, connected, it's fine.
okay.
So I think that it's either one of the screen monitors just maybe not connecting them or not.
Okay.
But I think that it's probably on because I'm having my laptop, so you probably don't see it.
The monitor should still be on, even though it's not projecting it.
Oh, okay.
That's strange.
But this one definitely doesn't turn on.
Yeah, that one doesn't turn on at all.
No, because I saw this problem yesterday, and this one doesn't. This one does, but it's breaking. Okay. All right. So now, well, you guys know what false positive represents? Now, here, let's say some kind of a test, like a flu test, right, or COVID test. So some people are sick and they are tested positive, right? So they get a virus. But for some reason, a lot of those who are not sick also get test positive. But what's interesting is this test doesn't seem to be that accurate, but it's pretty accurate when it comes to negative results, right? If you test negative, it guarantees that you don't get the virus, right? So now, what I mean by false positive is like it's a positive result, but it's not correct. People are not sick when they get a positive result, right? So that's false positive. So now guess what? You can actually put, these 4 entries into true positive. Oh yeah, Maya. Yeah. So you can put them into true positive, false positive, true negative, false negative, right? So let's do that. The first, like a top right corner, it's true positive, right? Because whoever tested positive are sick. That's true. This one is false positive. Tested positive, but they're not sick. Now this one, that's a bit tricky. Turns out it's false negative. Does it make sense? They are tested negative. They thought they are fine. We are not, right? But luckily, no one's like that, right? And the last one is true negative. That means tested negative. They are indeed fine. So now remind yourself, how do you define probability? You try something, right? Testing people. You might get different outcomes, right? So they're either sick or not, they're test positive or negative, right? So for a certain outcome, right, the probability is the number of occurrence of this outcome divided by the total number of trying, right? So false positive, the 20 cases, right? But the probability will be the number of false positive divided by the total number of positive results. There are 25 people tested positive, but there are 20 of them are false positive. That's why it's 20 over 25, so you get 80%. Okay, that would be. Now, let's do a quick check. Can you guys tell me the probability of true negative? Yes, 100%. Yes, 800 over 800, right? You see that? This is theory, right? But, usually it shouldn't be that, right? But it's just kind of special. So now you know that, right? So it's not divided by everything, right? So you're gonna go by, again, in a certain, category. Anyway. Now, number 20. How to get it done within a minute. It's not really as hard as it seems, like number 20. This one. And at 355.
That's happens.
No.
Okay, good. We want to finish your class with this, or we keep it together?
Yeah, I'm actually fine with the laptop, but but I do like the dual monitor because it's not in a hurry.
It's just I don't want these things to do so much starts that are just like the.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah,
it's not in a
that's
hurry.
for
Yeah,
class.
so I can definitely use the laptop.
Yeah, so as soon as your class is done, I'm gonna come back and just
Okay.
before we start, just have that fix.
Okay, cool.
Before we try to replace anything,
Mhm.
it'll be fixed before your next class.
Okay, cool. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your class.
All right. It's like, all right, cool. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Oh, yeah, it's always almost a minute. Okay, let's see. The answer is letter A, right? All right. Now it turns out that as you read and you saw that they're telling you some solution for even an inequality, right? I'll say the best bet is, put the solution back into the inequality, right? Just see what happens, right? Because this is not asking you to solve for the solution, right? This is the solution, right? It won't hurt if you just put it in to see what happens, right? But if you do that, there's no way you can miss it. So 5 for the y, greater than or equal to true for x, right? And you're getting 3 greater than or equal to n, right? So interpret that as n is no greater than 3, right? The maximum possible value will be 3, right? There you go. Right. Now again, now if I'm going too quick, don't worry, the lesson's recorded, all right, and they can ask me for the work. So I'll skip 19 since you guys learn from the full semester, right? When it comes to shifting the graph, if it's vertical shift, that will be very intuitive, right? Shifting it up, you're just adding, right, the 5 units, so you get this one, right? No big deal. Moving back. Now 18, well, I do want to give it a try. All right, so I think that should be good enough, right? So the K value is 5/2, right? So all I have to do is just pick a pair, right? Put it in. So they try to make it complicated, but it's just asking you to deal with the linear. In this case, it's actually direct proportion relation, right? Find a K value by substituting the x and y from the same pair. All right, so now 17 is actually a very interesting. Yeah, Maya, what's up? Oh, it'll be fine. So 2.5 is okay. So number 17. All right. That worth a minute and a half. Go ahead. All right, so the answer is letter C. All right, so but what's interesting about letter C is it's telling us that the poll is not even statistically valid, right? Because it's not randomly selected. So I hope that once you realize, oh yeah, it's true, right? Because they didn't require people to respond, right? So it's like, hey, it's a poll out there, right? If you feel like responding, you can do that. So this is like, say, Miss Hager want me to order the lunch for all instructors, but she want me to figure out what to order, right? To see what most people like, right? So I might have a lot of options like, a Taco Bell, Panda, right? Or maybe some fancy food. So now instead of me going around to get an idea like what people like, right? If most people, right, we only have like 20 people right in office. Most people went, voted for Panda, so I'll go order for Panda, right? So now instead, what I do is I posted a survey online. I said, hey, you guys, when you get a chance, if you like, responding to that survey, go fill out that survey. And there are 5 people responding to the survey and all pick Panda. I said, see, although everyone like Panda. So it it sometimes people do that, right? So they didn't realize it's not valid, right? So scientifically, if you do a poll, if you call it a poll, it's a crime not to pick the date, the sample randomly, right? So you cannot let people to volunteer to respond to the survey. In this case, it's like if you're a big fan of a certain candidate and somehow the person didn't perform very well in the debate, you don't even feel like responding to the survey or right. So I don't care, right? So it's so super biased, right? If you let people voluntarily, so you pick randomly, right? Who's gonna respond, right? That's called random sampling. Anyway, now moving on to number 16, which is trivial. I think that you just have to know what that notation stands for, right? F of 6, that's a function notation. So you want to evaluate a function by substituting 6 for x, right? So I'll move on to this one. You know what? I think that this should be fine as well because there is a formula on the front, which you don't see since I'm not giving you the packet, right? So for a cylinder, the volume of a cylinder, based on the radius of a cross section and a height, it will be pi r square, right, which gets you the cross section area times the height. So in this case, we get volume 300 pi equals pi times the radius square. But unfortunately, they get you the diameter, which is 10. So the radius has to be 5, right? So multiplying 5 square times the h, right? Finding an h by dividing out everything in front of it. So you get 12, okay? So I don't think you really have to do that much. Maybe you'll be able to carry out some mental math along the way. I had to do that just for, students' future reference, okay? Now, let's go back to, now number 14. Not supposed to be a hard question, but since it has a graph, right? So it's always worth looking into, right? Now go ahead. Number 14. All right. So the answer is A. Just want to provide you some, quick comments about these kind of questions. So it is very typical, right? They wanted to go through the data to see what trend you're looking at and pick the right option. But what's worse in reality is they might have a long paragraph to explain to you something that you don't even need at the end. So I'll say that, most likely you see some diagram, which is not too crazy, right? Graph, not diagram, right? Then you have a long description, so you're better off to go straight to the option. Read through the option to know what you're expecting, right? Then go back to the graph and find out just enough information for you to pick the right answer, right? So now, once you read, you're looking at the height versus the weight, right? They're talking about whether you have a bigger weight, based on a bigger height, right? And you go back and see, oh, that looks like a pretty linear, relation, right? So, well, obviously, the greater the height, the greater the weight, right? It actually makes sense in daily life. So you have a lot of reasons to pick letter A, right? So I'll say that don't waste too much time on reading every little piece of detailed information from the description of the graph. They are telling you how they did this, the experiment, all of that, right? So you don't have that much time to get those all figured out, and you probably don't even need them. All right, so now number 13. Again, give it a try. Aim at 1 minute. All right, so the answer is number 7. All right. So I hope you realize, they're trying to trick you into solving a quadratic equation, which is not terrible, right? If you do want to solve it. But if you keep reading, you realize, oh, I'm actually getting the x right away from much easier equation, right? If that's what you need, right? Adding the two, you get it. So please be aware of that. They like to do that, right? Provide you some redundant information. So I'll say if you don't have like a lot of information out there, so please do not dive into the math if you can take the leisure to process information and decide the smartest thing to do. Anyway, now I'll skip number 12. Since it's pretty much just asking you to use the population density 4,900 people per square mile, and the area of the city is 139 square miles, right? Just multiply them, you get the population. No big deal. Number 11, and of course, it's pretty standard, right? Solving for a system equation, and it's not ready for you to quickly add up or subtract equations, right? So I guess that some people probably like substitution method, right? But it won't hurt if you want to try the addition method. But with whatever you do, it should be pretty standard. So I'll skip that as well. X is equal to 6, right? But do give it a try when you get a chance. But I'm actually very interested in number 10. All right, so go ahead. Be careful with understanding something increased by 56.25%. You should. Pi r square. Mhm. Okay. Now, it shouldn't be a hard question since the formula is given on the front. And you need to find out the radius of the new circle if the area is now bigger than before, right? So let's say, how do we find the new area? The old one is 16 pi, right? So how I'm going to be able to use that percentage? Multiply, right? So now the problem is if you do that as is, you realize that you multiply something that's less than 1, right? The new area is going to get smaller, right? But that's supposed to be the case because they say the area increases by this much. So instead of multiplying just the percentage, what you have to do, what's going on? It's come on. All right, what you should do is multiply 1 plus 56.25%. Right? So that one means that it's based on the original area. You're going to increase on top of that, right, by another 56.25%. Okay, so that'll make sure that you get the correct area and you find out the radius to be 5. Right. Now, I think that there will be questions, very similar to this. For example, if you're thinking about inflation, right, or discounts, especially when they use, percentage, right, it could get a bit confusing. So like I said, let's say if we are looking at, maybe a laptop, which is $1,000. If somehow due to inflation, the price is marked up by 10%. So the price should be more than $1,000, right? So it should be 1,000, right? That's the original price times 1 plus 10% to make sure that you're adding 10% of the original price on top of the original, right? So don't miss that one. And it works out the other way around, right? If it's discounted by 10%, right? If you take a 10% off, then you take in original price, right? Times 1 minus 10%, which is 90%. So you're paying 90% of the original price. Things like that. All right, anyway, let's move on. All right, so this question should be trivial. I'm sure that once you finish reading, they talk about the price for 2 different kind of bagel, and how much you total you have to pay, then figure out the number of one of the bagels. Not a big deal. Now, number 8, well, x cubed is equal to this guy, right? Then you find out the x by taking the cube root, right? So that shouldn't be a big deal. Number 7, and again, as long as you know there's 7 days in a week, so you'll be fine. Now number 6, much straightforward version of a question based on percentage, right? So I'll skip that as well. All right. Now number 5. All right, so go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so answer is letter B. Uh, so if you realize that they're asking you to find out the product of the solutions, and then you see the equation, so you feel like that, okay, let me solve the equation. But I hope you realize this equation actually is trivial now, since do you see that the right-hand side of the equation is probably the best form you want for an equation to take, right? It's called factor form, right? Now, if you remember that, how much you hate the factoring, so now they actually factor for you, so don't ruin it. And what you should do is recall the zero factor property, right? So then you realize we have a product of 2 factors. And if the zero product, the only way it works is either factor becomes 0. And you can pretty much just read off the solution, right? But just make sure that you do flip the sign. So x is negative 1/4, right? Or positive 2/3, right? And later just go ahead and multiply them. In this case, it doesn't matter which one's positive or negative. You're gonna get negative anyway. But in this case, it just don't happen, right? So as long as you get one positive, one negative, it'll be fine. So I'll say that for, question number 5, right? It's very early in the test, so you're not expecting the question to be either hard or complicated. So if you use expanding the right-hand side, it gets to the standard form of a quadratic equation with ugly fractions. Use the quadratic formula and deal with the radicals, right? So you know that you're not on the right track, right? So let's I think that we have time for probably one more question. All right, I'll skip number 4 because that's just 2 points, right? You get a slope from the coordinates of 2 points. That's pretty straightforward. Now, number 3. Well, since that a lot of the students, in the past 2 periods didn't figure it out. So let's see how you guys are doing it. All right, so be careful about the meaning of median.
I have a question.
Sure.
What does what we say at the top there? Like we can't quite see it because
Okay, yeah.
Bar.
Percentage.
Okay.
Oh, here's a typo. All right, it's not 99, it's 89. All right. So the answer is letter B. All right. So now, in my 1 and 2 p.m. classes, students are a bit confused about like whether it should be letter B or letter C. So I guess that for some reason, they feel like that, hey, letter C is like the middle grade, right? Since median's like the middle data, right? But that's just a letter grade for the grade scheme, right? So the median says that you have to sort the data, right? In this case, it's the student score. That you go from low to high or high to low, doesn't matter, right? As long as they're in order. So you're thinking, what will be the score of the, or let's put it this way, the 50th highest score, right? Would it be in a B or C, right? Now, even though they say percentage, we can think about, let's say, if there are 100 students. So if you go from low to high, you add up these number of students, and you realize that this add up to be what, 41, right? 41 students are getting from F to the C. And there are 59 students getting A's and B's. So the most students getting A's and B's. So where do you think the 50th highest score is going to fall into? Is it going to be a B or C? It has to be in a low B, right? Because there are more students getting A's and B's. You're taking half of the data range, right? So that's why it has to be a letter B. Okay. Yeah, anyway, so I think that should be good enough. You know, the remaining questions, you know, you can try them, but I don't think it's gonna be that tricky anymore, right? I'll post it on D2L.